Hi, welcome to Business Influencers. My name is Chris Salem, your host. Welcome here to TALRadio platform. If this is your first time, again, you found us here at the talradio.org, where we have many of our great hosts hosting different types of shows here, from anywhere around business to all different types of interest in life, relationships, and personal well-being. Again, we encourage you to check out more shows here at TALRadio, part of the Touch of Life Foundation. And our show here at Business Influencers, we've been here since the inception of the TALRadio platform. And again, we want to thank you, the listeners, each and every week that have been with us from day one. Again, we wouldn't be here today where we're at without you. And we are committed each and every week in bringing in subject matter experts to share their words of wisdom and insights to help elevate your level of influence for you personally and your business to the next level. You could also follow us also on Spotify, Apple, and our YouTube version, which has all the video side of it on YouTube, again, at Business Influencers with TALRadio. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it is a membership program, taking out all the noise out of social media. You get to come in and generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with, including content. And if you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, we encourage you to check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, I'm very excited today. We got a great show talking about change management, and change is inevitable. It's around us each and every day. And no matter, how we resist it or try to avoid it, it's going to happen regardless. So you might as well embrace it. So we're going to be talking about the concept of change management with long-term impact. And we have the right gentleman here with us today. We're going to be talking with Clinton D.Fairbanks. And a little background about Clinton. I've actually had the opportunity to spend some time with him in Singapore when we were both speaking at a conference for commercial real estate professionals. He is recognized as a trusted advisor to over 35 of the global 500 companies and government organizations. Expertise stretches across the Americas, APAC, and EMEA for various sectors, including financial, pharmaceutical, life sciences, consumer products, and retail, innovation, revenue generation, change management, go-to-market strategy, training, staffing, supplier identification, transition, implementation, and transformation and governance. He's identified and cultivated strategic partnerships with leading convenience store, resulted in 44% end-to-end increase in services. He created a strategic FM services pilot program for 700 plus stores. Some other things that he's done are business solution development for Global 500 firm for REFM initiatives, achieving a 100% win rate, securing 53% of group profit target, co-secured 1.5 plus revenue for a global retailer. Now, I could keep going on and on and on. And he has been a speaker at numerous industry conferences around the world, including Organizations Direct. And without further ado, we welcome Clinton D.Fairbanks to the show. Clinton, how you doing today?
Chris, I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
We are such a pleasure to have you here. And Clinton, we always like to start off the show, to kind of establish a foundation of the topic that we're going to talk about. Let's talk about change management and, what is the foundation or foundations to change?
Okay, so really the first and foremost foundation to change, Chris, is that somebody needs to identify what is impacting either themselves or the organization. So if you don't know what's really impacting you, and you may understand it from a top point at a high level, but until you dive deep into really finding out what is the real root cause, you're not going to know what to do and not know what to change.
Yeah. So that definitely, so you got to really understand what that is in terms of if you're going to, kind of, I guess, roll with the punches or adapt to the change and to the things that you can control and so on.
That when you dive into really the root cause, then when you're ready to make that change, the two other foundations that I always go and talk to clients about, I talk to people that I coach, is really first and foremost, understanding the type of support that you need, understand the resources, but moreover is really clearly defining how you're going to make that change, who's going to be involved in making that change, what are the stakeholders, who are the supporters, who are mentors and coaches, and really getting that, really having that clarified. And
Yeah.
then ultimately, the final part of the foundation is you have to go in and understand the importance of discipline.
Yeah.
So discipline can be worded in many different ways. Within companies, we can call it governance, we can call it communication, but ultimately is how do you really put in a governance program, a discipline plan to make that change.
Got it. Wow. No, it's powerful. It's so true. And, before we talk a little bit about, how you've helped individuals and organizations make this change and transition and what that process is, I guess let's talk about, why is change hard and where does it stem from?
Absolutely. So we all have kind of had this personal experience where over the New Year's holiday we make our resolutions and we know that hey, we're going to change this year. And within about 2 to 3 weeks, we putter out. And a lot of that is that people don't want to change because change is really hard. But it's more or less, it's actually coming from fear. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of failure. It's actually, in many cases, the change is the fear of loss. So when you think about it, you're stuck in a dead end job. You're frustrated. You know you need a change, but hey, if I leave this company, I may lose my income or I may lose an opportunity. But really, where change becomes very, very difficult is that it's complex. So, give you an example. Let's say somebody's trying to lose weight, just from a personal standpoint. It's one of those where it's hard, it's complex. You have to exercise, you have to combine it with diet, you have to, in many cases, in order to succeed, you have to do a food journal. So, just all of the actions that you have to take in just to have that change. It can be difficult, but that leads to the final one is actually the new process. So we're all creatures of our habits. And so what ends up happening is that when you're trying to create a new habit, that fear of, I'll fail on creating that new process. I'll fail on creating that new habit. It really can dive in and emotionally, weigh in on somebody. But when you combine that with an organization where we're all in sync, we're all talking to each other, that becomes synergistic when other people in your organization are all feeling the same.
Wow. Yeah. I love that what you just shared. And, and like you said, we can't control change, outside of us, right? We can't control other people, we can't control situations. And these things are happening all around us, no matter what we're doing in our communities, our businesses, customers,
Right.
families, everything. There's always this going on. What can you share, Clinton, like, based upon a process? And I know, it's not always a cookie cutter process by any means,
Yeah.
but I guess, there's going to be some, standards, I guess. If you could share like what that process is in terms of change and transition.
Yeah. So we all of us, we have the foundations of change. We all know from the time we were kids that, do your homework. If you study every night and you continue to work, if you get good grades, that those habits are just going to continue to build and you're going to be successful in life, is what we've all been told. So, interestingly enough, a lot of times our habits, or what are the things that we need to change within an organization, they actually have built up over time and they've built up slowly. So it's one of those that, you're in a company where over time people are becoming less productive. You don't see it from the beginning, you don't notice it day to day, and eventually it just catches up, and one day we're like, okay, wait a minute, how did this come about? So it's measurement. And so one of the biggest things that you have to do in creating change is, first, you have to really sit down and identify, what am I changing? What are my day-to-day responsibilities that I need to get to that change? And then you need to come in and what I like to call is balance the change. And with balancing the changes, coming in and saying, okay, this is point A where I'm at right now. This is point B where I'm going. And then I've got point C, point D. Eventually, my goal is to get to point Z. So you want to start mapping that out. And when you've mapped out how you're going to get there, ultimately the first attempt is pretty hard because you want to do everything so quick, right? Kind of think about it. If you're going to go to the gym and you want to work out and you want to, if like me personally, I'll give you an example. In January, I said to myself, I have to stop. I had started noticing that my weight was going up, and I got to a point where I was 214 pounds. And I personally, on January 1st, I said, no more. That's it. I am making a permanent change. Well, yesterday I weighed myself. I was 182 pounds.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. And I don't mean to bring a personal thing in here, but I followed my own change management rule, and I realized what it was, is that everything is baby steps.
Yes.
It's little by little, but moreover is what I did is I overcame my resistance to change. I knew what I needed to stop. I built out my plan. But then what I started doing is I started gathering data and measuring. So I took an app. I took the app and I built in my milestones. I built in where I wanted to go, what my measures. And so I was every day checking it out. And then at the end of the week, I would see my weekly performance. Then what I would do is I would communicate. So I communicated to my spouse. I communicated to my children. I communicated to my friends that this is the change that I'm going to make. And by communicating it, I became responsible for my actions. And really, when it came down to it, I want to say I bit it off little by little. And so really it's this, I took small bite-sized steps.
Yep.
And ultimately I said, I need to practice discipline. But
Took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to ask you that question.
yeah, but discipline with a twist. So, and, Chris, what would you think is the twist with discipline?
Well, for me, discipline again is not, scolding, or, it's again doing something that you're not used to doing or wouldn't normally like to do, but knowing that doing it, it's going to serve you. It's going to fill your cup. It's going to lead you to other habits or other things that will help to accomplish your goal.
Exactly.
And the key is being consistent with it. So I was going to ask you that question.
Right. And here's the one thing with consistency. Consistency is the one thing that will get us further ahead than anything else.
Yep.
It's that determination, or it's the, some people like to call it focus with passion. But sometimes we know that we have off days, or we, in certain times we want to call free days. So I like to call practicing disciplined flexibility. And the flexibility is that we always know that we're going to point B and point C. But sometimes we need to take a detour. But if we take the detour, don't just beat up yourself up, or don't beat up your people in your organization for have done the detour. Know that the detour is there and quickly course correct. And sometimes know that sometimes you need to take the detour actually just to get to that point. So that's where I say is that, when we're doing this, you have to be strict, but you have to be lenient at the same time.
Absolutely. Like you said, you gotta take baby steps. You can't accomplish. Now, a lot of times that's where people, I guess, may give up, especially in the beginning, because they get so caught up in the end result, or I got to get to the goal. And then
Right.
they realize when they get that first pushback or that challenge as part of the discipline and, and the consistency, they either become overwhelmed, frustrated, and then they either default right back to the same.
Right.
That's where I guess that you got to just do it. You say, hey, if I fell off the horse, I get back on and just keep going. And that
Right.
type of, any insights for that?
Yeah. The funny thing too is that when you think about change, right, we have so many cliches that are out there. There's the, fail to plan, then plan to fail, right? You also have that, first make the habit and then the habit makes you. Well, these are cliches and sayings that we've used for a long time because they're they've been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years. That these are concepts that if you do, you've got a plan. You've got to plan ahead. You've got to plan in steps that you can actually make it and really, and I like to call it milestones. So once you've made your milestones, you just continue. And when you know you've got the milestones, you're now going to focus on a successful transition, a successful change.
Love it. So such great and valuable insights, Clinton here.
Yeah.
And now that you've given like a great foundation to change, why change is hard, and how to make this transition through accountability, discipline, and being consistent. If you could put it towards like an organization, is this something that starts from the top down, or can it start within any role or duty? Is it maybe like even at a team level or a business unit level? What would that look like to start seeing
Yeah.
the impact?
So it has to be bottoms up and top down at the same time.
Mm,
I always, I believe in the circle, and it sounds the way I want to describe the circle is that you have to have the top supporting and driving the mandate, but you have to have the bottom pushing it up to the top to make sure that the mandate continues to go. So if you're in a company that says, hey, we are going to improve our productivity, how do you do it? Well, if the productivity is going to be a mandate from the top, then there's that natural resistance. Okay, hey, why are you putting extra pressure on us? We already have our day jobs. We're already overworked as it is. So why are we putting into this mandate anyways, when we all know that every time we try and implement a change in the company, it's not going to work.
mm.
So there's this, reciprocal, hey, if the top is going to mandate it and the bottom is going to implement the change, well, they also have to keep each other in check. So this is where I like to come back and say to my clients is, you're going to create a joint governance, you're going to create a joint plan, and it's what I also like. I almost like to tell my clients we're creating art.
Yeah.
Accountability, responsibility, and traceability. And so once everyone agrees that they're going to create art in their organization, and you're holding everybody accountable, holding everybody responsible, then it's easier to implement the new processes.
Wow, love that. And does that mean that, like organizations, even if you start at a business unit level, that you can't assume and speculate what your role and duties are. You really got to get clear on what those role and duties are and each other. And do team agreements come into an impact here with change? If people are going to say they're going to commit to doing what they're going to do, but not only how it impacts them, but how it'll impact the team,
Right.
even clients, whether if it's indirect or directly.
Yeah. So when you're and team dynamics are so they're one of those that if we could have a magic remedy for it tomorrow, then we would solve all these issues quickly.
Yes.
So, give you an example. Here's a concept that I like to use, and I've implemented this in my own company. My leadership team, I call my F1 team or my Formula One team. And when you think about a Formula One team, what a Formula One team is the driver and the pit crew. And sometimes the pit crew are people they're going out onto the racetrack when the car is pulled in. They're changing the tires, they're fueling the car, they're wiping the windows. They're making all the checks that are needed to get the driver back out on the racetrack as fast as possible. And where within team dynamics, where somebody's roles and responsibilities are, is that you need to understand what your true roles and what you're trained for. But because you're all part of a team, you need to be cross-trained in a way that, let's say somebody trips and they're not able to go and put the tires on, you're going to be the one who has to step up and do this.
Mhm.
So when it comes to change, it's that disciplined flexibility. It's that discipline to follow the commitment to make sure that what your responsibilities are fulfilled, but have the flexibility so that you can go in and fulfill somebody else's responsibilities in case they trip or in case they need that extra support. And once you have that dynamic, change actually gets a lot easier.
Yeah, so true. And you know, and like with anything, communication so important here because a lot of times we just assume and speculate with our communication rather than being specific, clear, and concise.
Exactly.
Anything you like to share about the communication as part of this change management process?
Yes. So, having the opportunity to have worked in 28 different countries, I have learned that English is definitely the international business language. And you and I both know when we were in Singapore, they speak some really good, they
Oh yeah.
speak Singaporean English. And so sometimes some of the words that they were using, well, they're definitely the same words, but they have different meanings.
Yeah.
So it really is that you have to, when you're listening to the communication needs to be clear, concise, but most importantly, it needs to be short and simple.
Talk about the why it's important to be short and simple. You know, I mean, we could speculate why, but like, you know, if you could share, because I think that is so powerful in
Yeah.
terms of making the communication more effective.
Well, short and simple is that it leaves out, it basically eliminates any sort of chance of misinterpretation.
Yeah. Filler
Right.
words and tangents that now we lose focus even what they're even talking about itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, moreover, what it does is it brings everyone to an equal level. So, let's say you have somebody who's very, how would I say it? They've been very well educated. They like to use very large words, or what I would like to call the superfluous words, right? Well, they need to bring it down a level to have anyone and everyone be able to understand it. And the assumption is first and foremost, assume that everybody, although they're speaking English or whatever language you are communicating in, assume that they understand it, but don't assume that they're going to understand, how would I want to say it, difficult concepts. And it's not saying that not everyone can grasp these difficult concepts. It really is just making sure that you're covering the whole circle of everyone of every educational level. And this is in my industry. The reason why this is so important is because I'm in the facilities management industry. So we're dealing with we're mechanical engineers, we're dealing with janitorial staff, receptionists, and then sometimes we're dealing with building automation experts who
Mm.
are coming in. And so you have this whole range of educational backgrounds. So that's why clear and concise, short and simple is really important.
Yeah. And like you said, you know, there's different, I guess, you know, you'll have different multi-generational types, personality types,
Yep.
cultural, ethnic backgrounds, even though English universally is you know, language that most people know. You know, maybe it depends. Spanish, you know, could always be another one.
Right.
But with that being said, I love what you just said there. That simple, straightforward is just going to be more likely to be more effective, engaging, and less likely for, you know, a misinterpretation or misperception or miscommunication to take place.
Yeah. And Chris, you said a key word there, which a lot of people forget is engaging.
Yeah.
It really is. If you can make the communication engaging, people remember engaging more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, because it touches on something that how it made them to feel, like how what a lot of themselves to feel, so to speak, and
Yeah,
that's what drives a lot of action, or you know, and so on. So yeah, no, that's definitely spot on there. You know, as we get towards the end of the show, Clinton, anything else that you would like to elaborate that you did not share yet about change management that kind of really tie everything together? I know we could spend easily another half an hour on this topic. We were only going to touch the tip of the iceberg, but just high level, you know, for
absolutely.
listeners.
One of the key things with change, and this is where, as I've gone through, I've been inside, as you mentioned earlier, I've been inside many organizations, and I've seen the pain that a lot of the companies have when it comes time to creating a new program that's going to impact the company. So one of the most important things I like to say is really determine first and foremost is how ready are you for change, and how ready is your organization for change?
Mm.
Because that, once you have that assessment there, that's going to change how you create your transition plan, your change plan. And then the most important thing after that is identify the pain points. So you really, it's in a way, it's like taking risk mitigation and saying, okay, what's going to happen? What are the pain points? What are going to be our hurdles? And really find that mitigation plan that will address those as they come up.
Mm.
So those are the two other things that I think that if you pull those in, you're gonna succeed much quicker
Yeah.
and with more impact.
Wow. Powerful stuff that you shared here, and so valuable. And I want to make sure, Clinton, that we definitely want to have you back for another show to either have a part two to this conversation about change management. Just really valuable insights. But we'd like to have the audience get to know you, where what you're up to, anything that you like to provide them. But if you could let them know how to find you, what you're up to, anything you'd like to share with them here.
Fabulous. Yes. So first, you can find me at sojifm.com. That's SOJIFM.com. That's my website for my advisory program. And if you want, from a personal standpoint, you can always go see clintonfairbanks.com and see what's going on in my mind from a creative standpoint. I'm an amateur photographer, and I write children's books.
Oh, love it. Well, that's so great. Makes you so well-rounded. And again, we encourage everybody listening here and those listening later, reach out to Clinton. He's a great guy. And again, just somebody definitely you want to have on your team either way. So thank you, Clinton, so much for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us here on Business Influencers, part of the Touch of Life Foundation and the TALRadio platform.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here again at Business Influencers. We are committed each and every week in bringing in subject matter experts like Clinton in to share their words of wisdom and, most important, their personal experience to help move you and your business to the next level of influence. It's through influence that we can now create better engagement, better rapport, better trust, more respect. And through that engagement and bringing people together, we can do more, be more creative, innovative, and make a difference in the world of change that Clinton shared here today. We highly encourage everyone again to listen to this show in its entirety here later today or anytime, and share it with someone you care about in the business world when it comes to influence. And again, follow us here also on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube as well. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week at the same time. Take care.